Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Judging More. Also, the V-Team takes a look at failed RCOs. And Governor Robert Bentley wants to come clean.
All right, I'm going to level with you all. The most important thing now is that you remain calm. There's no reason to panic. Now, it is true that one of the crew members is ill. Slightly ill. But the other two pilots are just fine. They're at the controls flying the plane, free to pursue a life of religious fulfillment.
I'm not even sure how to respond to that. But there's much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics, with your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Morning.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
We are glad to be here too, and you know, things have slowed down so much, there's hardly anything
To talk about?
Yeah, right.
And y'all, and I'm very patriotic this morning because, you know, we're on the eve of the heels of the presidential election.
Yeah, we are. The madness will soon either begin or be over. We don't know which way it's going to go.
I think people are just tired of it.
Either way, that we're going to have the most unpopular presidents in the history of the republic, as far as what we're being told. The governor of Alabama this week came out and, you know, in true form of a Sunday school teacher, said that education in Alabama sucks. What 70-year-old man gets out in front of the camera and goes, education in Alabama sucks, Susan?
That's the leader of our state, supposedly the most respected person in our state, using a vulgar word like that is just, he's using the vernacular, even at that.
Well, I think it's deplorable, but I think he must have misspoke. I'm sure he wishes that he had not.
I'm sure he wishes he hadn't said that word.
I mean, is he on the verge of dementia, where he's just blurting out words?
I guess so.
But who's to blame for education stinking in Alabama?
I think it's the legislature. I don't think we're funding education like we should be, and we did this report last week looking at education funding in the state, and if you go back, they cut funding so much during the Great Recession. They've cut it 14%. And the education funding this year is 14% lower than it was before the Great Recession. So,
or 2008, 2008, right.
Yes.
And that's astounding. I don't think that the average viewer or person out there realizes it. And I think we have a fair amount of money in the Education Trust Fund, but the problem we have lies back at the feet of the legislator because they all have special pork projects that they hide in the Special Education Trust Fund, and the money does not go to the classroom, to the students.
There's things like a peanut festival in one city here in Alabama that's funded out of the Alabama.
Take it easy now.
It's funded out of the Alabama Trust Fund. I mean,
there's
is people don't understand how these funds are going in different directions and not to the students.
And it's a goodie bag for lawmakers, and it's a way that they can,
take home pork back to their district, and it's only pork if it's your pork.
I mean, right, and that only pork's good if it's yours. That's right. But the thing is, we're robbing our children's future by not giving them an opportunity for an education. And we're talking about this new workforce development thing. Well, if we don't fund it, we cannot do what they want to do.
That's
we
correct.
Can't have good jobs. And we just go on in failure.
I just don't think that we have the students' best interests at heart in this, because if you account in local education cuts that occurred during the Great Recession and since, you have a 16% decrease. So it's just, it just tacks on.
Well, and we've got to do something to rev up education, make it better and more accessible to more folks. I tell you something that's really was a shocking thing we discovered this week, Claire, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, we found out from depositions in a class action antitrust lawsuit, depositions showed that Alabama Blue Cross Blue Shield was charging one class of folks this amount of money, another class of folks that amount of money, and that when they found out about it over at the Department of Insurance, they just went, lunch, anyone? What? Nothing.
Oh, I mean, okay. It absolutely is egregious, and I know I use this word all the time, but this really is, because insurance, particularly in Alabama, because I used to call it like the Pac-Man, and Mrs. Pac-Man, and maybe everybody doesn't realize that, they have pretty much 90% of the market.
Right, they do.
So every citizen of this state is impacted by health insurance. And the cost that we've seen because of Obamacare, and then for them to be able to do this and charge those rates and charge us more in Alabama where their headquarters are, it is unconscionable. And then the fact the insurance department has turned their cheek the other way and know that they've misbilled for 10 years and hadn't done anything about it.
They've turned in reports that had the wrong amounts on it. They haven't really owned up to insurance about what they were charging or not charging or the differences. And the insurance commissioner just went, okay.
Well, and it's interesting to me that this class suit is being held in Birmingham, right, Chip? Mm-hmm. And it's 38 Blue Cross Blue Shields, and they say that they're violating the Sherman Act, the first clause, the antitrust clause. Mm-hmm. This could be a huge case.
I agree. I mean, I think this is just what happens when you have these quasi-monopolies controlling the market. You don't have any competition for the rates. And I mean, we talk about all the time, cutting down the state borders, but I think that would just happen on the national level too. I don't know what you do about it unless you have regulators that will do their job and make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen.
Well, we supposedly do have regulators, but we've unfortunately found out that they're not doing their job. And I think, didn't a judge in California really kind of put the screws to them out of one of these 38 states?
Yeah, and this is one of an interesting case which we need to get into at some point, that because they have so much in reserve. This one judge in California is threatening to take away their nonprofit status. Most folks don't realize Blue Cross Blue Shield are separate entities in each state, but they're all nonprofit.
Correct.
Now, there's also a suit coming as a result of them being in the separate states and the transactions that are going on there on behalf of the providers and the hospitals.
This is where the doctors are suing.
Doctors and hospitals.
Well,
yeah.
you can certainly see that because the doctors and the hospitals are all impacted.
Well,
by this.
the crazy this lawsuit right here is being led by David Boies, big time attorney.
I've worked with him and know him well.
He was the Bush v. Gore attorney.
Right, and then Michael Hosfeld, another guy who just did the NCAA class action suit and won that.
He also he got very famous for the ABC record case early on.
Yeah.
But Bill, are we ever going to see any results from this lawsuit? Because it's not supposed to go to trial in what, 2018?
2018, yeah, I don't know. I tell you what we have seen results from. We only got about a minute here, and I got to get to that thing, is that Governor Bentley wanted to bring us into the 21st century. Of course, you didn't realize we haven't even been drugged into the 20th century yet. But with eStart and STARS and all these other programs, we have now found that eStart, which is a time management system, has failed every agency, it appears. DHR just pulled out. We paid $6 million so far, Claire.
I mean, there again, it's egregious. I mean, we've got the eStars, the eStart, and we're spending this kind of money, whether it's $48 million, $26 million, that really, you could just take that money on these consulting contracts and put them at Medicaid and corrections, and you'd fill your holes right there. I mean, I just can't even believe that this is unconscionable that the state would sign into these kind of contracts.
Susan, we got about 20 seconds. $6 million.
$6 million for something that, to try to keep people from cheating on their time cards. And we're having to hire extra people to actually manage this system. It's costing us a boatload of money.
What did the AG's office say about it?
They can't use it.
They can't use it.
Agriculture can't use it.
Nobody can use it.
DHR, nobody can use the software.
Boondoggle Bentley. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Happy birthday and best wishes to the V-Team.
Bill and Susan, I remember when you had a dream of coming to Montgomery to report the news. Congratulations on bringing your dream to fruition. Congratulations on 3 successful years.
I'm John Merrill. As your Secretary of State, I will do everything within my power to ensure that every eligible Alabamian exercises his or her right to vote on Election Day. Exercising your right to vote is the first step toward empowering our citizens to make a difference in the electoral process. Don't forget to bring your qualified government-issued photo ID on November the 8th. You can make a difference. We'll see you at the polls.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our special guest today is columnist and extraordinary funny guy, too, Josh Moat. You are so funny. People don't know that.
Well, I think some people think that I'm funny, but not in the way that I intend a lot of times.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, you know, they think you're sarcastic.
Yes.
But,
yeah, I do have some sarcasm from
yeah.
time to time.
Well, we are happy to welcome you to the Alabama Political Reporter and The V. Mm-hmm. And your wit, your reporting, and your sarcasm are all welcome here. And we're just really happy to have you.
Well, it has been a great few weeks, just starting out. And it really has been nice to have that kind of freedom. And it's odd. There's been a number of people who have stopped me over the last couple of weeks and said, you look a lot happier than you are. And I was like, I feel a lot happier than I was. I feel a lot more free. And I think we get along. We have the same sort of scorched earth approach to fraud and things. So I think we're going to do well.
Well, and that's it. You got to, scorched earth, salt their fields with their bones afterwards.
Exactly. Expose it and then make fun of them.
Yeah.
That's
well,
always been my
that's
tactic.
the thing. It's about a press that is unafraid to offend the biggest offenders.
Right.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, I'd say that has always been, I don't know if a downfall would be, but the only negative to me is I never really cared who I went after and who I offended in this. And, and I don't doubt that that's probably cost me money or cost, jobs or whatever, but that's always been fine with me.
Well, the thing is, you go home, you can look yourself in the mirror, and I always say, if you don't offend somebody, you're going to end up offending yourself.
Exactly.
And to be reporters that compromise on what they see as corruption are enablers of that corruption. It's just, it's not how this should be.
No, it's not. It's that's the job.
Yeah.
The job is to go out and be kind of the voice and the eyes and the ears for people who are at work all day and they can't get out to these sorts of things. They can't get out to the meetings and they can't dig through records and they can't do that sort of work, to kind of expose the things that are going on and how much money is being spent under the table with their friends and their buddies and their pals to go out to eat and do whatever they want to do. And and so I think that's our role.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why we're happy to have you with us on this venture that I think will continue to grow and get better as you're with us and other folks. You uncovered a story this week. RCOs are collapsing. You focused in on one contract that was pretty substantial.
Yeah, Navigant Consulting company has a nice contract started in 2013 to help implement this whole RCO deal that they have, the regional care organizations in the state that are going to kind of transform Medicaid into the pay for service and to this deal where they kind of manage the care and everybody comes, when you go, the hospitals and doctors have this service that they're providing, but they're providing it for a set fee to Medicaid. Right. And so it's going to, supposedly save Medicaid lots of money on the back end of this. And
that's what Governor Bentley told us.
Of course.
And we can believe everything he says, right?
There's no doubt. This was not going to suck. Yeah. When we got into this thing, Navigant was going to sign a 2-year, $12.1 million contract, and they were going to have a fully functioning RCO system in place by 2016. The start of 2016. It is now going on 2017, and we don't have a fully functioning RCO system and won't until at least July of 2017, if then or ever.
Right.
Instead of $12.1 million, currently they've been paid around $18 million. They have a contract that's going to take them all the way to $20 million in place, and have one that should be approved today for another $8 million that's going to take them up to $28 million.
I mean, this is just like throwing good money after bad money, and this is how this administration, the Republicans, have handled so many of these problems. It's throw money at it and never hold anyone accountable.
Yeah, it's the lack of competence on just the basic levels of a lot of this stuff is kind of staggering. I mean, it's as though they just went out and hired friends to do a lot of stuff, and it kind of goes back to the whole debacle at Katrina with hey, it's a good job, Brownie, and that's what it kind of seems like. There's a whole bunch of brownies around here, and it just is such a mess.
Brown shirts too, we hear. But no, you're right. I mean, it's like they backed up the Brinks truck to the State House and just put the money in and sent it out to their buddies. And these contracts, you point out that Georgia, they helped Georgia on their project and spent $8 million with Georgia, and theirs actually kind of works.
Yeah, there have been setbacks and some things along the line there, and they broke it up into sections to be able to do it better over in Georgia. But it's the same sort of work. Actually, it seemed from reading through some of the contracts that they have that it was more work in Georgia because they actually started on the front end and gave them an idea of what to do. They created these surveys and went out and implemented the whole process. And so along the way, they've paid them the total of one extension here over the last 6 years in Georgia. And I can't for the life of me figure out exactly what it is that they've done so great in Alabama.
Well, it looks like they've done a great job of getting paid.
Yeah, they've done that.
Which is what where our contractors are known for. Yeah. It really is like a sort of a mafia deal over here. We're paying all these contractors. You wrote a column this last week about basically some advice to the Democrats of Alabama. Are they taking your advice?
I don't think so. They've been kind of immune to advice for a long time.
What do you think they need to do?
They're going to have to abandon sort of the I guess their objectives that led them into control of the state originally and kept them in control for a long time because they're not working anymore and because the world has changed, Alabama has changed, and they do typically a terrible job of reaching young people who are far more likely to vote for a Democrat than most of the older Alabamians are. And in a time where you have the Republican Party fractured, you have Donald Trump, and however you feel about Donald Trump, he has certainly splintered a number of people off of this, and they're making no gains with Mike Hubbard, with all the corruption, with all of the problems we've mentioned, that they're not making any gains. That's an issue of leadership. You would fire football coaches here over that, and they're not.
And there are young people that really want to do something with the Alabama Party, like Beth and Chip and you, and we need two parties.
Yes.
This one party thing, whether it's Democrat or Republican, sucks, to quote Governor Bentley, right?
Yes, it does. I mean, you got to have the competition there, and because the competition, the one thing that I've always agreed with conservatives on is that competition typically does help. It pushes people forward, and I think that's something that we don't have now, and you see it in these type of contracts and the way that we continue to get hosed as just the regular Alabamans.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the V. We'll have you back.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
And so happy to have you join us over at APR. We'll be right back with some more news and analysis. You're watching the V. Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. We're calling this the Confessions of Governor Robert Bentley. He has sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee saying that he wants to tell his side of the story. There's only one problem, Susan, with him wanting to do that.
He wants to do it in secret. He wants to do it behind closed doors with the committee. Now, we're talking about, what was it, 15
that
members?
15 members of the committee.
Closed doors, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's
let
where
your
we
hair
got in
hang
trouble
down?
the first time.
Yeah, I think so. But now, if enough members show up on that committee to this meeting, they'll have a quorum. If they have a quorum, it by law has to be an open meeting.
Right. Well, it violates, the Open Meetings Act.
Of course
Yeah,
it does.
I just think this should be open to the press and to the public. And Jackson Sharman, the committee's special counsel, wanted to meet in his office in private with just him and the governor. And to me, that's just as inexcusable. This should be open to the public. The public needs to know what the governor tells this committee.
Right.
I mean, this should be public knowledge. I don't know why this isn't
Well,
questioned.
let me say this. I think the whole thing is a sideshow and a side circus, okay? They're talking about impeaching him. I'm going to go back to my soapbox. They let that speaker sit over there for 2.5 years, okay? And he had been indicted, okay? And right now, we don't know if the governor's done anything illegal. I'm sure that the Attorney General's office, U.S. Attorney, why don't they just wait till something comes out?
Well,
or they just grandstand?
And I think that the reason is they don't want to have the same mud on their face because they didn't do anything about
a little
Bentley.
too late last time I checked.
Yeah, well, it is. But, they've got two faces so they can use mud on one, none on the other. Speaking of that, this past week, Bentley signed an executive order. Chip, you covered the story, where they have selected the 7 judges that will hear Roy Moore's appeal. Roy Moore was not very happy at that hearing. I think Josh was there. You covered the judges. Give us a little background on what's going on here.
So, Josh covered when the Alabama Supreme Court met in their chambers, to draw from the lottery to see which judges were going to be on this panel to hear Moore's appeal.
Right.
And they had a pool of retired judges. They drew 50 at random. The first 7 who were willing and able to serve were these 7 judges. And I'm not going to read off all their names, but you have some people like Edward McPherson and Robert Cahill, William King. So, the question just really is, Moore's attorneys wanted the judges to be active judges,
right.
and that's why they walked out of the chamber. They wanted a continuation motion, and they just left because they wanted the judges to be active. These are retired, so we don't know if they're going to be accountable for the decisions that they make.
And that was Moore's point, was that if they were active judges, not retired judges, they'd be more accountable to the people for whatever decision they reached.
Exactly.
Whereas a retired judge, it doesn't matter for their career.
Right. Now,
if they're not political and they know that they're supposed to uphold the rule of law no matter what, and that doesn't always happen in Alabama.
We're
but that's
in
what
Alabama,
they're
Claire.
supposed to do is uphold the rule of law and do the right
Well,
thing.
the thing
That's
that
true. But I
inter-
do think this is kind of jackpot justice over his future and career.
I
Judge
think
Moore.
that is what a lot of people would say as why they didn't want to choose elected judges, because they wanted them, to look at the law and decide it from that.
They did want it not to have the pressure on them, because there's pressure on both sides. If you're a judge, you're going to hear from the Moore side, and you're going to hear from the other side, and there's going to be pressure. I can see both of them being correct. I'm just worried that they will not release the court records in the Moore case, even though we filed to intervene and have them released. They won't release it. And what the most disgusting thing is the Montgomery Advertiser, AL.com, all these other newspapers are supposed to be papers of record. They have not joined us in that suit. And I called the Alabama Press Association, and they said, well, we'd get involved if it went on appeal. Appeal to who, I said?
Yeah.
Who do we
Right.
appeal to? It's to appeal to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Susan, I mean...
It's just ridiculous. Everybody is just so afraid of this case. Everybody is so afraid that they're going to, be seen to like Roy Moore or, something crazy like that. When what we're looking for is, where is the justice? What is the real truth here? What actually happened?
This is not
That's right,
about
to unveil
Roy Moore.
the truth and let the people know. And the last time I checked, I believe the citizens of this state overwhelmingly elected Judge Roy Moore as the Chief
Well, you know
Justice,
what we're
not these 7 judges.
And I've never been the type of person, like I've said on the show in the past, I've never been the type of person to, defend Roy Moore, but I agree, if there's something, to use a teenage term, sketchy going on in this court, then I think we should know about it.
Oh, well.
Exactly.
If they won't unveil it, you can rest assured there's a skunk somewhere with all this that's going on. Something's going wrong, I can tell you
Well,
that.
I tell you, it's just interesting to me that we can't get those documents. We can't get anybody else to sign on. this is, and I fear it's because they're happy with the outcome.
That's right.
I mean,
think
and,
so.
and that's the thing. I don't care about the outcome. I care about what's in the documents. We have a right to know. And what is Lynn Stewart, Mike Boland, and Jim Maine hiding?
Our taxpayer, our tax dollars pay for those documents. They pay for their salaries. That should be open to us.
Absolutely, no question
Essentially,
about
their employer.
According to state law, there's no reason for them to have those documents sealed. Roy Moore asked they be sealed. Now he's asked they be unsealed.
Sealed,
We've
right.
asked.
And he is the only person that has a say in the matter, really, or should have a say in the matter.
Exactly. By law,
Right.
that's the way it's designed.
We've only got about 2 minutes, and boy, I tell you, we got 14 amendments.
Oh, boy.
And some of them are so convoluted that people ask me what to vote for. I said, well, if you don't understand them, vote no. That's about the simplest way. But there are some amendments on there that are worth talking about. Amendment 2, which is the park.
The two of us have an interest in.
Y'all have different interests, right? Or the same
No,
interests?
we
I
both
think we're
are
on the same
Auburn
page.
grads. We would vote. We would encourage people to vote yes on Amendment 1.
Yes,
I think I would say yes. You know, we have a great state park right outside Auburn, Chewacla. This amendment is intended to protect the funding for the parks and make sure that the legislature can't take that money away.
Because believe me, they will.
Now,
If they can.
Well, I'm sorry.
They have.
Amendment 1 and 2, I would vote yes on both of those.
Now, what's Amendment 1?
Okay, Amendment 1 would add 2 additional seats to the Auburn Board of Trustees.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. They're the odds, okay?
Uh-huh.
I think there's only about 4 amendments that I would vote yes on,
We
okay?
all know where that amendment came
Yeah,
from.
well,
That
anyway,
stinks.
the other amendment that I think is
The impeachment process one?
the impeachment process one, that, you know.
That's number 6.
Yeah, that looks reasonable.
I think they should pass that. I
Yeah,
would
that
encourage
looks
those
It's
to
just,
vote for
it requires
number
more votes and in the Senate to impeach.
Right.
It would make it a 2/3 vote from the Senate to impeach the
Yeah,
governor.
I
Instead
think
of
that's right.
this
That
now,
makes sense. The other thing is this, the other big
got-
one, right to work, which I always call right to be fired. I know
We're
Claire,
already
you
right
before
to work
that.
state, vote no.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
There's no
this
reason
would
to put
just
it in the
ingrain that in the Constitution,
Yeah.
What,
basically.
we're going to 901 pages of the Constitution now?
What is
Really?
it?
Come
I don't
on.
even. I
it's
lose count of
the
how many.
largest constitution or longest
operation.
constitution in operation. India is coming in second.
I think they used to be in first, but we keep
Yeah.
adding amendments.
But so I do think that streamlining the Constitution with amendments at number 3,
Yeah, well,
I would possibly
we-
encourage people to vote.
We only
yes.
got about 10 seconds.
Don't forget number
Amendment 14.
That's important.
That's to get their butts out of the sling they put themselves into. Vote no. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.